Imagine it's the 1960s, no smartphones, no Twitter debates, no instant highlights. If you wanted to watch your favourite team, you had three choices: the newspaper, radio or TV. But traditional media didn't just show sport, it shaped it. It decided which sports got attention, which athletes became stars, and how fans experienced the game. Today, I'll be heading to the infamous Elland Road, home of Leeds United, to explore how traditional media has influenced the way we watch and understand sport. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment to be part of the lab crew. Let's get into it.
Sport feels like a universal language. Fans all around the world watch the same matches, celebrate the same victories, and debate the same moments. But much of how we understand sport is shaped by traditional media, including TV, newspapers, and radio. One way that traditional media does this is through agenda setting. Agenda setting theory suggests that the media doesn't tell people what to think, instead it strongly influences what people think about. In sport, this happens through the amount of coverage certain sports receive compared to others. Agenda setting creates something known as cultural oligarchies in sport, which explains how a select few sports achieve dominance whilst drastically overshadowing others. Specifically, cultural oligarchies are clear to see in the USA. The big four sports of American football, basketball, baseball, and ice hockey, dominate media coverage throughout the nation, meaning it becomes extremely difficult for sports such as football, cricket to expand. NFL alone generates over $20 billion per year in revenue, with a majority coming from TV rights. This reinforces the lack of opportunity there is for smaller sports to grow, unless they can afford to pay huge media rights. In the UK, audiences are constantly exposed to football stories throughout media channels. Have you ever turned on Sky Sports or BBC News? Chances are one of the main focuses have been football. This means it becomes a sport that dominates public discussion. This is a clear example of agenda setting in action, where media's priorities shape what fans view as important in sport. Another way that traditional media shapes sport narratives is through sexism, particularly through something called gender marking. Now, gender marking occurs when women's sport is labelled as women's, while men's sport is treated as the default. This reinforces the idea that men are the standard. For example, media channels often refer to competitions such as the FIFA Women's World Cup or Women's Football Games with these gendered labels, while, as we know, men's competitions like the Premier League are simply referred to as just football. Gender marking also appears in commentary and media coverage. Female athletes are sometimes discussed in relation to their appearance, personality, or family life, whereas male athletes are more frequently described in terms of skill, tactics, and performance. One key example of sexism and gender marking in sport is the 2018 US Open final, where Serena Williams received a code violation and a penalty fine. Her reactions in the match were labelled as crazy and furious, just showing passion on the court and sticking up for herself. The stereotype of the angry black woman is rooted in the history of prejudice, sexism and racism. Gender marking stems from sexism, a serious problem that continues to pop up throughout the sporting world. In fact, 58% of women who experience sexist abuse said it made them consider quitting their sport. This shows just how serious the problem is, as it stops young female athletes from reaching their full potential and achieving their goals. £6 for a large hot dog, you're having a laugh. Anyway, let's talk about the topic of racism. Traditional sport media has also faced criticism for issues of racism, particularly through the ways athletes are described and framed. Research has shown that commentary and reporting can use different language depending on an athlete's race. This has happened in more than 2,000 statements from commentary across 80 games, from the Premier League, Serie A, and La Liga. For example, black football players are often praised for physical attributes such as speed, power, or natural athleticism. Specifically, players like Raheem Sterling have been frequently described in terms of pace and explosive ability. Meanwhile, white players are more commonly praised for qualities such as intelligence, leadership, or tactical awareness. One example of racial bias in commentary came from the BBC Radio Derby Sports Scene podcast in February 2020. Former professional footballer turned pundit Craig Ramage suggested that all the young black lads needed pulling down a peg or two and needed to work harder. This comment resulted in outrage over social media platforms such as X and Facebook, and was followed by BBC dismissing Ramage. Although these differences in language may appear subtle, they can reinforce long-standing racial stereotypes. Over time, repeated patterns in the media commentary can shape how audiences perceive athletes and their abilities.
So I'm back now from my day out at Elland Road, and whilst I have criticised some of the issues surrounding traditional media, I do still believe it is important to recognise that traditional media plays a key role in making sport accessible and creating iconic moments. Television broadcasts have helped turn events like the Olympic Games and the World Cup into global spectacles watched by billions of people. Personally, to fix the issue of racism and sexism in the sporting world, I believe that there should be stricter punishments in place for those who use any kind of racist or sexist language, as this will prevent others from doing so. This will remove the long-standing stereotypes that I mentioned earlier in today's video. And that is how traditional media has shaped the way that we see sport, from setting the agenda on which sports dominate headlines to influencing how athletes are represented in the media. Hey guys, hope you learned something new in today's video. Make sure to check out my other content and make sure you hit like and subscribe. Comment if you found this helpful, and see you on the next one.